Well, thank you all for joining us today. Let's get started. This is the second part of a two-part webinar series offered by the National Tribal Child Welfare Center for Innovation and Advancement, and will be facilitated by Courtney Bolt and Kara Pasqua. I'm going to give them a moment to introduce themselves here in a second, but if you weren't able to join us last month, we do have a recording available from part one of this series, which you are welcome to access via the link that Kyla will put in the chat. In our December session, we learned about things like secondary traumatic stress, burnout, and how these things show up in our places of work. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll go in depth into strategies for combating those factors and others in the workplace so that you can feel great about the incredible work that you would do. If you'd like to learn more about the types of resources, services, and information that the NTC-WCIA offers in relation to these topics, please explore our website that Kyla will also put in the chat right now and submit an inquiry via our easy-to-complete request form. Ooh, okay. This webinar might look a little different from other webinars that you've been to, so I'd like to just take a second now to walk you through some logistics to help you navigate some of our activities. First, this presentation is being recorded, and the recording will become available on our website, www.ntcwcia.org. While the chat will not be viewable in the recording, if you come up off mute during any of our activities, which I'll talk about in a minute, the recording will capture your audio. In general, you can use the chat at any time for contributing to discussion. In addition, throughout the presentation, Kyla will be sharing important resources and prompts in the chat as well. So be on the lookout for Kyla Selby's name in the chat and feel free to respond. Another note, you might have seen comments in the chat from AI note takers or Otter AI. Because of the nature of the content that we'll be discussing today, and to encourage a more welcoming, inclusive environment, we'll be removing AI note takers at this time. If you intended to have AI notes, please feel free to reach out to us privately so that we can work with you individually. If you have questions for the presenters or tech questions for us, please use the Q&A function, as the presenters and hosts will see that and we'll have time saved at the end. As I mentioned, there will be a few opportunities for you to come off mute throughout the presentation. To do this, when the time comes, Courtney and Kara will ask for volunteers, and if you would like to volunteer, please raise your hand to do so. Kyla or myself will then unmute you in the order that you are listed. We'll only have a limited time for this portion of discussion, so if we aren't able to get to you in time, feel free to share your example in the chat. That's all I have for you, so I'm going to pass it on over to Courtney.
Bonjour and bonjour, guys. I hope you guys are having a good time. We're thankful again that you're here with us. We know you have a lot of demands on your time, and we're really humbled and grateful that you chose to be here with us. My name is Courtney Bolt. I'm the program manager for the Center for Tribal Social Work at the University of Oklahoma. I'm from Hominy, Oklahoma. I'm enrolled citizen Potawatomi, and I'm also Red Lake. All right, Kara?
Sionagan Dagodoa Kara Pasqua. Hello, everyone. My name is Kara Pasqua, and I am so happy to be here today. Again, like Courtney said, just want to say thank you. We are grateful that you decided to join us today. And those of you that were with us in December, welcome back. I work with the University of Montana's National Native Children's Trauma Center, which is a direct partner with the National Tribal Child Welfare Center for Innovation and Advancement, who is hosting today's webinar. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a proud Cherokee citizen who has spent approximately 30 years working for my tribe, serving children and families in some capacity. Actually started off as a child protection investigator. Personal note, I'm also a mom and aunt, and probably the brightest role right now for me is being a grandma to four amazing kids. So I look forward to our discussion today and just being able to listen in as hopefully you all have time to share as well. So I'll hand it back to Courtney.
All right. Looking for the slides. Are our slides going?
You don't have them, do you?
No.
That's fun.
It's okay.
Do you have them now?
Right.
No,
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Looking
great. Thank
good.
you.
Thank you again, Kyla, for work on the slides. So we're going to go through a couple little housekeeping and group norm stuff before we get into our content. The first thing we want to do is we really want to recognize that we are not, Kara and I are not the only experts in this room. We have, how many folks we got right now? We got 76 people here, right? We know that we've got folks who have been here for decades, right? And who share tons and tons of practice knowledge. We also want to recognize that we have elders on the call today too, right? Who can speak to wisdom that has been passed down, within their communities since time immemorial. And so all that we ask today is we know that this is a webinar, right? And so interaction is going to look a little bit different. But we do ask that when it comes to interaction, please know that your voice is welcome, right? And that we really value your opinion and we want to hear from you. One of the things that I really want to add too is I know in a room it can be intimidating to speak when you see, almost 80 people in here. I want to remind everybody that these are folks that are coming from that same line of work, right? We're like one big family, right? If you think about it that way, right? Nobody's big fancy. Please feel confident to speak, and also know that if you've got something on your heart, it might be the something that somebody else needs to say, right? We're going to talk about some research stuff and some finding stuff, but we want to hear too about your experiences and the knowledge that you have to bring. Okay. We ask too that as you're sharing, if something comes up, that you prioritize your emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. Right. We ask that you share what you'd like to share, but don't feel like you have to share if it's going to cause you harm. Right. We don't want that for you. We want you to have a good little time. Right. Part of the pros, if we have to take the cons of webinars, we'll take the pros too, which means you don't have to be on camera, right? Even at the end, when you take yourself off mute and you participate, you're still not on camera. So it's nice. So we can take a couple deep breaths, get the wiggles out and relax for a little bit, right? Take a load off and have some good conversation later. We do ask that you approach differences with respect. We know that some of the stuff we're talking to is going to be close to your heart, right? And so if it comes up and we are having passionate discussions, that's good. We just ask that we do so from a place of respect and with respect, right? We value differences of opinions, and I think that there's always something to learn from what people have to say. Okay. Um, as always, again, if you need support, please reach out via private chat with either us or Kyla or Kylie. We're here to help, right? And so, yeah, that's a little bit about how we're gonna start our day. Thank you guys again for being here. Okay, brief little agenda points. So we're going to start off by reviewing our key points from our webinar. Thank you guys again. We know that was a little bit heavy, a little bit of a heavy content time right before Christmas. But it's really our hope that when we really understand problems, uh, it sets us up with what we need to find better solutions, right? That are precise and good, right? And so, yes, we know that was a little hard, but we want to say thank you for your investment, right? And so we're going to use that conversation and that knowledge that we shared during our last session for our work in this session. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to build off of those things, including we're going to introduce our 6 principles of trauma-informed approach, and also revisit our Maslow's framework and those 3 categories. We're going to combine those to help us build support for both yourself as an individual and also your organizations if you're a leader. All right. Thank you. And we got a good day ahead of us.
So we're going to dive right into discussing how we can overcome some of those work-related conditions that we did speak about in December's webinar. Just to recap, if you recall, some of those conditions that we spoke about were secondary traumatic stress, empathic strain, which is also known as compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma. We talked about moral distress, burnout, and compassion satisfaction. And by the way, I do hope each of you who attended in December took the opportunity to do the homework of connecting with another colleague to discuss those questions that around the why and the goodness of this work. We recognize how busy this work is, right? And there's always something going on. So we wanted to intentionally provide just space to have an opportunity to reconnect with more of those, the good parts, the good stuff of this work. So all the adverse or negative conditions we spoke of, as we recall, were related to working in that crisis-oriented and trauma type work. And over time, and often progressively, unfortunately, can lead to those high levels of burnout, right? Which is what we do not want to happen. So we believe today's conversation is crucial to ensuring that sustainability within child welfare. Those of you working in child welfare, you are providing that good stuff, that direct support to children and families. And all of that stuff, it can help truly influence the direction of their lives and help them move toward healing, right? But in order to do that, you have to be able to stay in this position, in this job, and stay present and be able to remain as a source of support for them, right? It's also too important. Another point we brought out last time was to remember that being impacted by this work, it's a very normal response. Research continues to show that child welfare work is inherently traumatic, which means that more than likely you or one of your coworkers will feel this impact over time. We would also be remiss if we did not acknowledge how the work conditions that many of you face every day also can take that toll. Work conditions such as those heavy caseloads or having to take on those extra duties as assigned sometimes due to staff shortages, or working within the systems that often have those limited resources, right? All of these circumstances can bring about that sense of heaviness within the work itself. And so, our hope today is that through this conversation, you will be provided with actual tips and strategies that can assist you in maintaining and sustaining the ability to do this very important work. So we want to begin by grounding ourselves in the six of the principles that can guide you in your everyday work. These principles that are identified by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration include safety, trust, peer support, collaboration, empowerment, and the history of individuals. We call this using our trauma-informed lens. It means that whenever we're in the work, that we are recognizing that any one of us, or our coworkers, or the children we work with, or the families we serve, they all may be carrying around with them those personal effects of trauma, right? And if we keep that in mind, then we can build responses that support healing instead of unintentionally causing harm. And these principles itself, they can be an anchor for every conversation, every decision, and every interaction that you may make. The framework is designed to provide a path toward a healing-centered approach when delivering services. And so we want to start by creating safety, trust, and collaboration, and we do this by showing up as approachable, respectful, and inclusive in all of our engagements with one another. And then second, we want to lean into one another using our peer supports. I know those of you that work within child welfare, you recognize already that your team members are some of your strongest resources you have when working in child welfare. We also want to strive to empower one another by breaking down any silos and minimizing power differences. We make space for there to be comfortable conversation that includes that level of mutuality as well as real input and exchange of ideas. Then we create opportunity to amplify every voice and strengthen the choices we may need to make while doing this work. And finally, the recognizing that history, that individual cultural and historical experiences hold deep strength, right? And wisdom. Man, there's so much richness there. All of us show up in this work bringing with us that past history and experiences that impacts how we choose to interact with one another. And all of these particular principles can help us build resilience and can inform us as we navigate through those difficult days and those adverse situations.
That's good stuff, Kara. Thank you again. I feel like every time we review those 6 trauma-informed approaches, it really makes me think of new ones, or brings those ones that those strategies that maybe I'd forgotten about that I was like, oh, I need to do that again. So thank you again for sharing that. So in addition to our six TIAs, we're also going to pair them with our Maslach's 3 burnout categories that we discussed last time. So one of my favorites, again, this definition of burnout was brought by Christine Maslach, who developed it in the 70s. And probably my favorite thing about this definition, we also acknowledge that there's more than one really definition for burnout. But my favorite thing about this definition is that it's set up into these 3 categories that can be addressed, right? And again, I know you've heard me say this before, but I really feel like folks who work in tribal child welfare settings, right, and adjacent fields, are some of the best problem solvers around, right? And so if we really understand what's going on, if we really unpack it, like we did in our other session, we can use that knowledge to build very precise and solid approaches that are more than just bumper stickers, right, or nice things to say. They're effective strategies for staying in this work, right? Not just staying, but finding resilience even in really hard times. And so when we look we're going to do a little review of Maslach's 3 burnout categories, and then in our next session we're going to have some discussion around these. So our first category within Maslach's three categories of burnout is emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion, right? This is when we're feeling just completely drained. I think of this one as if a couple nights sleep won't fix it, it's probably a little deeper than that, right? So this isn't the regular tired. We call this bone tired, right, in Oklahoma. And so, and it's a result of really being overextended. As you could guess, an approach to addressing this looks like addressing your emotional, mental, and physical health, right? Building them up, finding ways to strengthen these areas to manage this symptom of burnout, right? And weather it, really. Yep. And so we're going to talk about strategies that are going to help our heart, our bodies, and our spirit during our next discussion. The second category is called depersonalization. Another way, that's a clinical term. Another way to describe that is really a loss of empathy, right? It's when we are feeling cynical and detached from the work. It might look like us showing up feeling cynical towards clients. If I'm looking for symptoms, we talked about the symptoms. What does that look like in me? What does that look like in others in our last session? Obviously our first category, emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion. We know that. We know when we're feeling those things because we can see them, we can feel them. Other people can see them and feel them too. Depersonalization, I start recognizing that anytime I'm saying anything like, must be nice, if somebody's saying something and I'm thinking must be nice, that is not, that's a little out of character for me, right? And so I know that if I'm exhibiting a lack of empathy, that it really is my body crying out, right? It's going into survival mode. It's pulling those energy reservoir back and saying, hey, you need to hold on to this, sis, right? We're expending too much. And so it goes into survival mode, and that makes me have a hard time with empathy. I know a lot of people too, there's shame around this when they start feeling like they're losing their care, which is why a lot of us got into this work, right? And so I can't say this enough. You're going to hear us say this more times than not. We have to start breaking down. Not we have to start getting out of that shame cycle, right? When we start seeing this in ourselves, that shame isn't helpful, doesn't help us move forward, and it doesn't change anything, right? So our last but not but not least bucket with regards to these categories is a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. That's when we might get to the place where we're burnout and we're feeling just completely ineffective. We're not feeling competent. We're not feeling accomplished, right? Um, I recognize this one in myself if I start feeling like the cases, I'm negatively looking at cases. If I'm thinking, oh, well, I already know what's going to happen, right? I'm seeing the future, but I'm not, right? It means I'm burnt out. If I'm just assuming the worst thing is going to happen, right? Or if I'm feeling like nothing I can do will make a difference, right? And so those are good I guess, alarm bells for that you can recognize each of these. And so next we're going to talk about some strategies for how to address each one of these categories. So how for this next section, this is our activity section. So I hope everyone's feeling ready to talk and excited about this. Um, so for this next section, I'm going to talk about things we can do for ourselves personally as individuals, and then Kara is going to share about some strategies that leaders can do to help support their organizations. And then we're going to hear from you guys. Okay. So if we're looking primarily at strategies for addressing emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion, that could look like taking care of our health and wellness. It could look like engaging in cultural practices, cultural practices. And you're going to see a lot of these that they tie into the TIA, right? The TIA principles. We know that our people have suffered immensely, unimaginable things, right? And yet we're still here, right? So our people have cultural practices and ways to keep us here, right? This is not just a buzzword thing we say. They work. At us being on this call, there's almost 90 people on this call, right? That's why we're still here. And so recognizing that and tying back into that is going to be an essential for our own individual well-being as well as our organizations. So again, I meant to say this a little bit earlier. This is not by any means an exhaustive list, right? Our hope is that these are some touch points and examples that can kind of get your wheels working, right? If any of these don't work for you, that's okay. That's okay. We would like to hear what does work from you later, because it might work for somebody else. Again, I want to reiterate on the health and wellness. We have to put our masks on first, right? We have to take care of our physical bodies. There's a limit, right? One of my cousins is always saying, my body can only take so many hot Cheetos. You know what I'm saying? Like being mindful of what we're putting in our bodies, and I love me some hot Cheetos too, but in balance. That can look like participating in wellness activities, getting out, getting moving. It can look like seeking mental health care. We have to destigmatize accessing mental health care in our communities, guys. Um, it's essential, really. We got to take time off. We need it. I think the first time I shared last time I was 7 years deep in the field before I took a vacation. That should not be a badge of honor. Look at my face. I'm disgusted with myself, right? Like, do better than me. Please take time off so that you can stay. And when other people take time off, we got to support them, regular meditation or prayer taking care of our spirits, calling our spirits back to us when things happen. I know a lot of us are trauma survivors, and making sure that we're being intentional about these things. And again, to reiterate, do not shame yourself or other people when they're taking care of themselves, right? It's how we stay here. I know at least in my office, that wasn't always the vibe, right? To be taking care of yourself. But we've got to start doing it as a manner of survival. So, Kara?
Thanks. So when we look at what programs can do to address emotional, that mental and physical exhaustion, it really starts with normalizing your self-care activities. Programs should be supporting actual moments during the day, right? To do some self-care. Maybe it's, as simple as taking a walk around the building or going outside to reclaim some fresh air, right? It truly starts there. It's also about promoting opportunities for staff to have access to cultural wellness practices that actually work for them, making sure that we're leaving space for that. It's integral to refrain from developing that culture, like Courtney mentioned, where you have that badge of honor, where you have the highest level of hours of leave, right? We need to encourage staff to, take time, use the options that are available, make sure they are aware of all those options, right? I know there were times when I was a staff person, I'm like, I didn't know we had that. We had that ability to do that. But it's making sure as an organization, as leaders, we're, ensuring our staff are fully informed about those opportunities. And then, to me, ultimately, it's about fostering a culture where people feel as if it's okay or it's safe for them to take care of themselves. I mean, a lot of times, we're always in a hurry. As Courtney mentioned, we're just focused on that next crisis. But we have to be intentional in our organizations and as leaders to make sure that our staff are creating space to take care of themselves. So those are just a few suggestions, as Courtney said. So
So now we'd like to hear from you guys, right? What are some strategies that you found that really help you? Um, in addition to these, they could be the same, they could be different. But again, like we said, you never know what you're sharing from your heart might help somebody else, that might work for them. Um, so what strategies do you guys use to help address your emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion?
we'd love to hear from you. And if you want to raise your hand, as Kylie put in the chat,
Mhm.
we'll definitely take you off mute because prayer works great for me. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Spending time with elders.
Mm,
So much wisdom and
Thank
grace a lot of times. I feel like a lot of times when I get to spend time with my elders within my own family, it's just a place where I can go and relax, right? Like, talking with family and friends.
I like that, decolonize the way we do work. Taking your mask off and feeling like you can be yourself at work. It takes 10 pounds of energy that I was, having to pretend. Uh,
Volunteering in your community. Yeah. Venting. Yeah, gotta have that opportunity to debrief, right? Those difficult days when you're just like, oh, I gotta talk to somebody. That's really when you rely on those peers, right? You're like, oh, I need to talk.
I like that, breathing in and out with the waves. That's good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Venting. Yeah, visiting.
Movie time. Yeah.
One of the ones that I like, because I have a thing with like wind. I don't know if it's because I'm ThunderClan, but sometimes in the storm, if the wind's just going, I'll just go stand out in the storm and let the wind go over me. Or I would, when I was driving home, I would roll the window down, just let that wind come over you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Yeah. Going to water was always important to me. Being able to take an opportunity to do that, just healing for sure. Yeah.
Antoinette, I'm sending you big hugs, right? I think we all been there. It's really hard to do work at work sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for a drive.
Mhm.
So, ooh, that's one of my goals this year.
Yeah.
To get back into sewing.
You know, they say too, any craft that you can get to hold something, right, is good too, especially when you work in fields that um are feel ambiguous, like the progress or successes feel uh not intangible sometimes. You know, getting to hold on to something is good for your
Mm,
body and heart.
absolutely. Painting by numbers.
Nice.
I love that.
That's good stuff.
So does
Good.
anybody, when you think within your program or your organization, or there's something just really, something you feel like, oh, my program is really doing some amazing work around supporting self-care. Anybody want to share regarding that? I know I was in a community about a year ago, and they were talking about how their particular leadership really focused on making sure that they had masseuses available. I was like, wow. Anyway, amazing stuff.
Corey, I like your sweat. I'm a sweater too. Man, that's real stuff. It works for real.
Walking grandchildren around. Yeah, there's nothing like that grandchild love. Just being able to cozy up to them just takes everything off, it takes away all the stress a lot of times.
Hey, Tradish Women's Retreat. I think I need an invitation. Hey. Mm. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
That's good
Create,
stuff.
creating an opportunity to walk around the healing grounds.
That's a good one. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you guys again for sharing. You never know. Like we said again, you know, you never know what might be the things. Pedicures for real, Donna. I need a pedicure, actually. You never know what might be the thing that somebody else tries. Oh, that's a good one, Susan, for organizational. My boss always checks on me and asks me if I need time to take care of herself, right?
yeah,
Leadership has such a strong role, you know, in taking care of their staff.
right.
Um, that's
Leading by example, right? When I
leading
always
by
think about when we talk about self-care in the workplace, leadership has to be willing to do it as well, have to pave the way.
I think sometimes too it has to do with that, like you said, that leading by example always also gives them permission to do it. You know, it's like, oh, can I take time off? You know, I remember the first time I had a boss. Well, the first time I took vacation was the first time I had a boss that was like, I'm going to Mexico. I'll see you in 2 weeks. You know, it was like, I am on vacation. Do not contact me. And it made me feel like I could take vacation for the first time, you know. And so that's good stuff.
It is.
Um, yes, Alice, the PowerPoint will be sent out. Okay, so let's continue our conversation. On strategies for improving empathy. So these can look like a lot of the stuff that was the same for strengthening our bodies, self-care, right? Our physical, emotional, and spiritual mental health. Because what we found is that empathy has more to do with getting our bodies out of that survival mode, right? Rather than just saying, well, you lost your care. It's not that you don't care for people, it's that your body is in survival mode, right? And it's hard to um, prioritize anyone else, you know, when you get that low, just
Yeah.
being. It could also look like attending trauma training, um, empathy exercises, thinking about things from other people's perspective too. After, I would say, in addition, almost always in addition to self-care too, listening to podcasts about topics that help. Sometimes it's good to just put something on and listen. Um, Bringing your culture to work. Somebody had mentioned too, decolonizing uh, the way that we do stuff. having a commitment to showing up as yourself at your work. I can't say that enough. Um, and then speaking up for yourself and others, right? Exercising those advocacy legs. So that's a good one.
So when we talk about strengthening empathy within our programs or organizations, it really starts with ensuring that workplace culture is fostering transparency and trust with your staff. It's creating environments where employees feel safe. They feel as if it's okay to share what may be impacting them, right? Have you ever had a time where a boss was like, "Oh, I want to hear what you have to say," but then they don't give you the time? We want to make sure that, we're really fostering that ability to make sure that we create time to listen, right? It's also, when I think about organization, it also means making sure every staff member is trained in understanding what trauma is. What does that look like? And how does it impact us? That's why we've had these couple of webinars. It really provides, also, when we think about employees, it's making sure that they are trained in empathy-based practices, such as, how to actively listen, how to, respond in a reflective manner. So, also it's about organizations making sure that their policies and practices truly support empathy, right? A lot of times we're focused on, making sure that the job is done. There was always a thing at my previous work, 30 visits in 30 days. We really need to, shift our focus to from completing those tasks to ensuring that any written guidance is grounded in, those attributes of empathy and compassion for those that we're working with, right? And again, it's about creating a work culture where staff feel as if they have a voice, that they are being heard. Um, and then again, finally, it's about approving and supporting, giving them, empowering them to feel as if they can participate in whatever is best practice for them, which is best health medicine for them. We often think about uh, providing empathy to our families, and it really starts with us, and it starts with leadership, and it starts with staff, right?
Yeah. All right. Thank you again, Carrot. And so next we want to hear from you, right? And so please continue to put stuff in the chat. But we also want to invite you and remind you too, if you want to speak, um, please raise your hand in the little there's a little or emoticon, I guess, down there where you can raise your hand and we'll know to call on you. And then what that'll look like is that um, Kylie and Kyla will take you off mute, and then we'll be able to hear your voice, but your picture will still be hidden. So we'd love to hear from you. Just what helps you when you're feeling, I say, maybe a little cranky and you're feeling a little cynical. What helps you kind of get back to yourself in caring?
Oh, yeah.
Mm,
Making sure you have perspective, right? Shifting that frame of like, oh, making sure that you're knowing what are small and big potatoes, just like you said,
yeah,
Don.
smudging. I got my little baby smudge shell right here. I use it for training so I can carry it around. Yeah, alone time for sure.
Yeah. When I think about empathy, I think it's a constant, we're having to refuel ourselves constantly. To me, it's an ongoing process. Regularly.
I'm gonna let Lenora talk now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, Lenora.
Lenora, you might still have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
There you
Yeah.
are.
Okay, that was a lot of buttons to push.
Oh,
Sorry.
But
sorry.
Thanks for
I
being
was just
patient with us, Lenora.
I was just saying that I have some really great support of my coworkers. So sometimes it's really nice to just kind of sit down and talk about it, and then you get a different perspective from somebody else. And
Mm,
so it kind of puts things back in the right. But I found that's helpful for me.
yeah. Our coworkers, they refuel us and they give us true perspective, right? And sometimes they can share things that, nobody a lot of times, this job itself is so um everything is confidential that your coworkers, they're your sounding board. A lot of times they can share things with you that others can't for sure. So yeah, definitely a great resource.
I think not feeling so alone too. There's that aspect too of like talking to somebody who knows what it's like, I think, there's some things that, you can't because of confidentiality, you can't talk to anybody else about it. But even if you could talk to them about it, I don't know that they would get it.
Okay.
Um, and so there's something comforting to me too about being able to share that with somebody who really knows and then can add that additional perspective. I
Thanks.
like silliness too, Crystal.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Gotta have the laughter. Gotta have the laughter.
Ashley, I like that. Remembering that something might be small to me, but it could be a big issue for others. Oh, yeah. I think too, recognizing sometimes it's like, even if you've been through something similar, you haven't been through that same thing as that person. And so recognizing, like, Ashley and I think Donna said too, that, uh, you know, what taking time to listen to them, and just thinking about it from their perspective can be really helpful. I think
Yeah.
it takes the heat out, takes the heat out of it a little bit sometimes for me. Yeah. Oh, that's really good, Susan. Um, Treating, one thing I have seen a lot of tribes doing, I think it's excellent because the language we use about and with the folks we work with really impacts how we treat them, right? Is that I've seen a lot of tribes moving towards the use of relatives as client instead of client. Susan mentioned too, I could see that being helpful in treating them the way you'd want somebody else to treat your family, you know um, remembering that in these communities, we have responsibilities to each other, on both sides. Mhm. That's good stuff. This is a good one. It's a hard one, but it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about our last one. Okay. So, in our last category, we're going to be exploring tools for improving a sense of personal achievement, right? So that can look like, I know that a lot of times we always say, or a lot of folks say, it's like, oh, I don't do it for the praise, or I don't do it for the trophies or the recognition. Definitely don't do it for the money because there's not any, right? But I think that we can get ourselves in a bad place when we pretend like that recognition and acknowledgement is not a human need, right? At least to be seen at least to be seen. It's like I don't need a parade, but to be seen and to actually feel like that the work that you're doing matters, is essential to keeping going. Um, and so that could look like looking for success in our own work and also in the work of our clients and our colleagues. Um, I think a lot of times, like Kara said, and we talked about before, you can just be running. You're just running and you're not taking time to celebrate those moments and to point out, one of my old bosses used to say, catch you doing a good job, to catch people doing a good job, right? And then to call it out. Um, you never know when they might need that. It's like a glass of water and somebody running a marathon. Everybody needs to be seen and acknowledged. And I say, including our clients too. Journaling, that could look like reflecting specific wins on accomplishment. Um, Somebody had mentioned, difficulty and kind of unplugging their brain after work. Journaling was one of the ways that it has helped me in the past. If I'm at home and my brain's still rolling, I'm going to go journal, right? And then when I'm done journaling, I'm going to shut the journal, right? But that's one thing that has helped me. Celebrating client successes with them, ceremonially crossing things off the list. That was one that one of my colleagues has gotten. And so, like, especially if we're working with folks who are working treatment plans, and I got a big old list. They start out with a big old list. When sit down with a piece of paper and cross it off. I'm a lister. I love me some lists, and it's real satisfying to cross that off and then do a little mini celebration, right? When you cross that off, it's a big deal. And it can
Especially if
also,
it's in red. Sorry.
oh yeah, just like, God, did it, rocked it, awesome. Um, and seeing and congratulating colleagues on successes. One of the other things that I've seen, last thing, folks do is just really being intentional. I know that, over the years we see celebrations for folks when adoptions go through or when adoptions happen. I've seen a little bit of this, but I would love to see more of it. Celebrating reunifications, right? Celebrate the kids going home. Celebrate finishing the treatment plan. You know, Sometimes those cases go on for years. You know, we need a victory dance at the end. Everybody needs them, right? Um, so yeah, this is not an exhaustive list. It's just some kind of touch points to get your own wheels moving about what would work for you.
Yeah. And so when we think about, what organizations or the programs or leadership can do to improve that sense of personal achievement, it really is about making sure every employee feels informed, right? Prepared and confident in their role. We all want to make sure that we know what we're doing in our jobs. We want to make sure that people fully understand their job duties. And maybe that's providing that strong onboarding whenever someone comes on board, when they're a new hire. It may be, developing mentoring processes within that workplace itself. And it's always developing develop making sure there's a developmental plan for each employee, making sure that they have opportunity to go to different trainings throughout their career, right? We're always learning. That's one of the great things I loved about child welfare is that I always learned something new, right? And it made me curious and kept me energized, so to speak. So also making sure that we have those monthly individual, supervised meetings. I had a colleague who used to say that when she would meet with her supervisor, she's like, it's like my power hour. So, but we also want to make sure as organization and leaders that we are consistently providing that monthly support, right? A lot of times, I know we've said it more than once throughout this that we know that everybody gets busy. There's the next crisis waiting to happen. And so, but it's really important to make sure that to help foster that trust and connection that staff can have a sense of feeling that, yes, this meeting is going to happen and it's going to happen regularly and consistently. So, And finally, we want to recognize those achievements and milestones. And doing that, that's huge, right? Everybody wants to know that they're doing well. I know in this job, there's again always something going on. So it does require some either leadership or programs to intentionally take that time built into the work day, to bring everyone in and truly honor and uplift one another. Giving that regular specific praise and publicly highlighting, what employees are doing right. That can do so much for that overall culture. It can build confidence and boost morale, and definitely um, develop those connections within, the work environment itself.
It's good stuff. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, I'm seeing some too already starting. You already know the drill, right? Please, we would love to hear from you again. Holly, that is beautiful. I love that. Um, she said that she likes to think of her work as being like a ripple in water. Um, and then it goes out to everybody else. That's beautiful. No worries, Jennifer.
Yeah.
So please, again, share with us. We'd love to hear from you, and I know your fellow participants would love to hear from you too about tools for improving um, a sense of personal achievement, both in yourself or in your organization. What's somebody, too? It's a good time to brag on your tribal programs too. If you have a leadership that have implemented something that's really meaningful or really helps. Um, yeah. So put it in the chat, or if you'd like to speak and we'd love to hear you, please raise your hand and we will call on you.
While people are thinking about it, Courtney, you mentioned earlier how you recognize this category in yourself in your own work. I'm wondering if when you recognize that, how you address it then, if you have things that you like to do, or Kara, if you do as well.
Um, I think for me, it looked like I would really just take time to celebrate, right? Take time to recognize that at the end of the day. Um, I think that for a daily practice of journaling really, really helped me. It also helped me feel good about leaving work at work, right? And so I would start out picking two things that I felt proud of that I did that day. What are two things that you felt good about today that you made a difference, right? And I would write those things down in my journal, right? And every day that I did that, I felt a little stronger, right? I felt a little better. One of the other things that I did is don't cut yourself out organizationally of the victory dance, right? So I had worked in kinship for a long time and I was really fast at doing the assessment part, right? And so I would do the assessment and I was doing those all the time. But then when it went to placing, I had let somebody else place, right? And so don't cut yourself out of that victory dance, too, is what I would say. Right. Thank you guys. I know we have a couple folks and we're just starting to wrap up. Thank you guys again for your such great participation today. Uh, before we head out, we do have a survey. We would really love to um, hear ways to improve. 90%. Susan, that is awesome. We had 90% reunification. Yes,
Ooh,
with
that is
families.
something
And
to
I'd love to brag
celebrate.
about that.
Yeah.
Teach us your ways, like that's phenomenal. Um, thank you again, Kyla. Kyla's put the survey in chat. And so as we're filling out that survey, we had a couple little just closing words that we wanted to share with you guys. And please, again, continue to add your strategies in the chat. This was a phrase every time, a lot of times we want to make sure we're sending people out on a good way, back into that work, back into this brave work. The title of this series was called The Cost of Caring, right? We know that it costs something. But we still think it's worth it. This phrase, Gawin Gecko Duncan, is something my grandma used to say to us when we were little. It means remember who you are, right? And sometimes she would say it to us when we were being ornery, we were acting crazy. But sometimes she would say it to us when we were having a really hard time, right? And in looking back, sorry, getting a little emotional, got me. In looking back at that coming from her, she was a boarding school survivor, as many of our grandmas are, right? And she'd been through a lot, right? And so her saying that in that moment when we were having a hard time, right? Or we needed to be kind of called in. It's like, hey, don't you forget who you are, is what we want to leave you with, right? This work is hard. It costs a lot, but you have within you strategies in your cultures, in your programs, in the TIA strategies and the other strategies we talked about today. You have the tools to not just weather the storm, but to rise from it. Okay. And so I want to leave you guys with some hope too. You're not alone in your struggles, and you're not going to be alone in your solutions. If you need help, please reach out to somebody. Don't beat yourself up. Don't shame yourself for how we got here. Rest is important. It's essential to how we stay. One of the things that I was talking to some folks earlier today about was when I was putting these earrings on today, you see, is they've got white around them. Something else that I was taught about our Potawatomis, about our beadwork and our florals, is that we put white around our medicines. And so you can see those. I know there's probably some other tribes that do that too, but that was kind of the way I was taught. And the reason why I was taught that we circle our medicines in white is it's out of respect to that winter season, right? And so recognizing that in the winter, when we're resting, that's where that good medicine comes, right? When we're being still. Our ancestors understood that, right? They understood that the medicine that we grew up in those winter times when we were taking time to slow down was what was going to get us through the whole year, right? And so I want to leave you with that today. Remember who you are, but also remember too, don't feel guilty about taking rest, right? Our people have been taking rest since time immemorial. And this is ultimately going to be how we get through this. All right. So thank you guys again for sharing time with us. As a reminder too, this session will be available on the website as well as PowerPoints. Thanks again.
Thank you all. We appreciate you being here today. We know there's a lot of other things you could be doing, and we just appreciate your time and your sharing.
Y'all keep doing that good work. 90%. Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's amazing.
I was just gonna say Dorinda had her hand up, but maybe that was a mistake.
Oh,
Canada.
in Canada.
Thanks for joining us.
I love to see it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, Susan. It's the only way.
I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording now and give folks a second to wrap up. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. And if you haven't filled out our survey, please, please, please do so. It's very helpful for informing sessions like this one. And feel free to check out our part 1 of the webinar as well. Thanks all.